leaving the NBA. Let's talk about that because we have some breaking news. The offseason never stops. So let's start with the Bradley Beal thing because I feel like this is a twofold situation. One, obviously, for the Phoenix Suns and Bradley Beal, but two, this might be a bigger picture thing for the NBA, and a loophole may have been found in the CBA, and I'll explain why. So let's start with just the straight up Bradley Beal situation in Phoenix. We know that they wanted to trade him, and obviously he has a no trade clause, and so they couldn't trade him at the trade deadline unless he agreed to it, and obviously he was not willing to do that. So there are actually 3 players in the NBA with a no trade clause. That is LeBron, which LeBron, we're hearing talks about him might getting traded and stuff like that, but LeBron has a no trade clause, Bradley Beal, and now Jackson Hayes, which I didn't even realize Jackson Hayes got a no trade clause in his new deal that he just signed. So I'm going to have to do further research on that after this, but there are 3 players in the NBA with the no trade clause, and those are them. So because of that, Bradley Beal and his contract have been, impossible for the Suns to trade because if he doesn't agree, he's not going anywhere. So what just happened with Damian Lillard? Damian Lillard was bought out and waived and stretched and stuff like that by the Milwaukee Bucks. And so they owe Damian Lillard the rest of his contract. He wasn't bought out. He was waived and stretched, rather. Let me clarify. And so what that means is the rest of his contract is going to be paid out over 5 years, because how it works is however many years you have left on your contract, when you get waived and stretched, you double it plus 1. So he had 2 years left, so that makes it 4, and then you add 1. I don't know why that's the rule, but it is. So that's how it came out to 5. And so Damian Lillard's going to get $22.5 million for the next 5 years from the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, Phoenix is in a really tricky situation, and it's a little bit different than the Milwaukee Bucks, and this is why. There is a rule that you cannot have more than 15% dead cap space, on your sheet. So Damian Lillard's 22.5, I believe it comes out to like 670,000, like right under that 15% limit. The problem with the Phoenix Suns is they already have some players with, dead cap money, which is Nasir Little and one other person, I forgot who, I'm so sorry. So they already have not a ton of money on their books, but they already have some. So they can't pay Bradley Beal the full amount. Like they can't just waive him and stretch his, contract the way that Milwaukee could. So that's why it's even trickier for Phoenix, because they have to have Bradley Beal agree to a buyout. Like Bradley Beal has to agree to a buyout or it can't be possible for them to do this. So what that means is Bradley Beal would have to take, I think like 97 million of his, 110 million owed or something like that. So first they have to get Bradley Beal to agree to that. Bradley Beal holds all the cards, since he's been in Phoenix. But after that, then obviously they would be good to have, Bradley Beal off the books, and then they would be paying him, the whatever amount that breaks down to over the years that he is owed. So they will have a ton of, money in dead cap space. 15% the same way Milwaukee will, it'll be split a little bit differently between Nasir Little, one other player, again, I forgot who it was, and then obviously Bradley Beal. But here's the thing that I think is a bigger picture. I don't think it's an issue because I love it, but it might be an issue for, Adam Silver and the people who wrote this new CBA and agreed to it and stuff like that. Let me tell you why. The thing that they put in this new CBA, as we can see, is all these financial restrictions and, stopping these teams from, building these quote-unquote super teams and all that kind of stuff and, just spending whatever amount of money, because there wasn't really a hard cap before. It was just like you would just keep paying, bigger financial implications, but teams were just like, it's worth it because we're going to win a championship. So their way of kind of stopping that is putting in these like kind of hard cap rules, which make it, more difficult to just keep these really, really expensive teams together. So with that being said, here's why I feel like this might be a sort of loophole found in this CBA, which I'm loving. And that is Damian Lillard's going to be getting paid his money and he's free to go whatever team he wants to. Now, Damian Lillard is coming off an Achilles tear, and we hope he heals up soon, and then he comes back, at his best self. But Bradley Beal, obviously he's not in his prime anymore, but he's not coming off an injury. He's fine. I know he's had injuries, since he's been in Phoenix, but currently I don't think he has any injuries. So why is that important? If he gets bought out, he's going to go to a contender too. He gets to go to any team of his choosing, and he's going to take a small salary because he's getting paid majority of his money. Maybe he'll take a mid-level, but he's not getting a max contract anywhere else. So why is this important for Bradley Beal and Damian Lillard and for potentially other stars around the league and even really good role players, six-mans and stuff like that? Essentially, the way to get under the aprons or, this kind of stuff would be to do something like this. If you want to be creative and you don't mind taking some dead cap space, and most people's contracts, are not going to be these $100 million contracts that Damian Lillard and Bradley Beal are, there's a way to now, because I see the vision, that you can just waive a player and then get under whatever cap restriction you want, and then that player is free to go anywhere. So, again, I know Damian Lillard's not in his prime, especially after tearing his Achilles and stuff like that, but just think about it this way. Imagine Damian Lillard 3 years ago, and he got waived and stretched. Just imagine the CBA happened 3 years ago, and this same thing happened with Damian Lillard before his injury and stuff like that. Can you imagine a team signing Damian Lillard for the veteran minimum? That's every team in the league who can get Damian Lillard, who's going to give them 25 points per game and be a star. So Bradley Beal, again, past his prime, but Bradley Beal in a veteran minimum could still get you 15, 20 a game too. And so why I think this is kind of a loophole is that, yes, there is a restriction on how much you could spend in dead cap space. Like I said, 15%. But most people's contracts are not going to be as large as these players. So what if you have someone, and I'm not going to single him out, I'm not saying this is happening. But what if someone like a Naz Reid, who is so important to the Timberwolves, sixth man of the year, awesome player, doesn't have any injury history, just a quality player. What if for whatever reason Minnesota ends up being in the second apron, let's just say next year, and they just want to give up a Naz Reid. This is not going to happen, but I'm just giving you a scenario. They waive him, they buy him out, whatever, and now his money's on the books for the next whatever years. That's not really a good example because he just signed a big extension, but you get what I'm saying here. Now Naz Reid's getting paid. Minnesota gets to get under whatever apron they're trying to get under, so they get to win. And then Naz Reid gets to go sign with any contender he wants and probably, or maybe, win a championship because he's going to add the value of a $25 million player at $1 million or $1.5 million veteran minimum. So what I'm saying is yes, teams are not going to want to waive and stretch a player, all the time. It's not a loophole in a really easy way. It's definitely a difficult decision. But again, if you have someone who's if you have someone who's making, let's say, $20 million for the next 3 years, so that comes out to, let me make it an easier number, $18 million for 3 years. That means they're getting $6 million a year approximately. So if you waive them because that $6 million is getting you right over the second apron, again, it doesn't have to be a $113 million contract. You waive a guy, 3 years left, but it's only $6 million a year, so it doesn't break down to too much money on the cap for that team, but they get to get under the second apron, whatever team this is. And again, this is a quality player going to whatever contender they want. And like I said, it would be less happening as often with really big stars because they make a ton of money and teams don't want to have that much dead cap space. But we can run into situations where it's an up-and-coming star, or like we see here with Bradley Beal, a person who was a really big star when he was in Washington. Now he's past his prime, but you can still get Bradley Beal for a veteran minimum. You'll take that any day of the week. He's still way more worth that, right? And same with Damian Lillard. So that's why I feel like it's really interesting to watch this kind of strategy moving forward. I don't know if this is going to be a strategy for teams. It's not like I heard anybody say this, but when I saw Bradley Beal's name come up today about potentially being bought out and stretched, the first thing that ran through my mind is like, oh, teams are looking at this as a loophole to get around these financial restrictions, whether, again, it's waiving a big star for big money, which, again, would be less often because that's a lot of dead cap space, or waiving, like I said, someone making, $6 million a year, but that $6 million gets you under the cap or under the first apron or second apron or whatever it is. And now these really, really good players are free to go to whatever team they want, and they could literally make a team the champion. Like, they could be the missing piece because they're that good. They just were waived. And so I think this is really important because, like I said, one of the reasons this was put into place to stop the super team era or whatever. If you watch this page, I like dynasties. I love dynasties. Now, I loved seeing OKC win their, championship and Shea getting his first ring and stuff like that. I'm not opposed to that at all. But I love dynasties, and I'm not afraid to say that. I love dynasties. Like, the Warriors dynasty was so fun to watch, and it's still technically going on because, Steph and Draymond are still there. But, what I'm talking about, the rings with KD, and then obviously the ring that they won before that, and they are a dynasty. And obviously Michael Jordan's Bulls and all that kind of stuff. So I enjoy watching, dominance, if you want to say. Again, I enjoyed watching Shea get his ring and, other teams winning too. I'm not saying it should just be two teams winning every single year. That's not what I'm saying. But I also enjoy watching just really, really good basketball. When you have, it doesn't always work this way. Players have to mesh together, personality-wise. You can't just put 5 random stars together. But if they do fit, it's some of the most fun basketball to watch because you're watching some of the highest level basketball because these are some of the best players playing with each other. So I find that enjoyable to watch. I really do. So like I'm saying, my whole point is yes, this is not the Warriors adding Kevin Durant in 2016, right? If you add Damian Lillard or Bradley Beal. But they're going to be the 2 best free agents out there. And Damian Lillard literally averaged 24 points a game last season. So that seems like a no-brainer to me. That seems like, again, maybe it's not a super team, but it's it gives teams this flexibility to kind of build medium super teams in a way, depending on who's bought out and who's waived and stretched. So I don't know if this is going to become a strategy, but this new CBA may end up working against what it was designed to do. Because I've said since, I've been talking about the CBA, I've been saying teams are going to find loopholes. They are going to find a way around it, one way or another. They're not going to stand for being restricted in one way, shape, or form. Teams are smart. They hire the best people to find these loopholes. And is this going to be, like I said, a standard loophole? Not necessarily, because, again, you have to eat the money then, and it's on your cap. But it's definitely something you definitely could do, and it might just trigger teams to start looking for loopholes more, which, listen, I'm here for it. I'm here for the loopholes. I love finding, loopholes and stuff like that. That's fun. So that's my opinion on that. And the last thing I quickly want to talk about is Jonas Valanciunas, because breaking news, Jonas Valanciunas might be leaving the NBA. He was just traded to Denver 2 days ago. However, a report came out today, or maybe it was last night, but I believe it was today, that he might go sign, and I'm not going to pronounce the name of the team because I can't, but it's a team in Greece where he was offered, I guess a really, really good contract and stuff like that. And so he's going to, it hasn't been confirmed that he's leaving, but it was a whole bunch of reports that he's nearing a deal and he's really likely to ask for a buyout and all that kind of stuff. So it seems like it's happening. Again, not 100% confirmed yet, but it seems like 90% confirmed. So Denver got got the short end of the stick here because they, first of all, they traded for Valanciunas. That's number one. But number two, they finally had gotten their backup big for Jokic. Like a really good one. Like I was complimenting them for getting Valanciunas. And now he's not going to be on the roster. Well, likely not going to be on the roster. So if I'm Denver, I'm not sure what they're thinking or what they can do. Because supposedly it's not going to impact the trade. Like supposedly the trade is going to go through regardless of, him staying or leaving. So the trade is likely going through either way. But if you're Denver, all the good centers, or most of them, have been picked up in free agency already. Like DeAndre was the last, I guess, really sought after center. That doesn't mean there's not other good centers on the market, but like the really sought after ones are now all picked up. So now not only are you without Valanciunas most likely, now you don't even have a backup big to replace him. Like there's nobody on the market who can do what Valanciunas, did and does. Like he just doesn't exist now. So I don't know. I don't know what Denver's going to do. Like this is a major setback for Denver. A major setback because this was one of the most important moves they made and they really needed it. Like I love, putting Bruce Brown back on the roster and getting him back. Like everybody who watches this page knows when they lost Bruce Brown, I was like, it's the beginning of the end. Like I couldn't believe they lost him. So I like that. I really like the THJ pickup. Like all those moves will definitely, make them better and stuff like that too. But I feel like Valanciunas was one of the most important ones because, again, they needed a backup big for Jokic. And now I don't know what they're going to do. So, I mean, like I said, there are centers out there on the market. Al Horford is still out there, but I don't know if he's like leaning towards going to Denver. So if they got Al Horford, obviously that, definitely makes it better. But I heard, like I talked about a few days ago, I heard that I heard that the Warriors are, I guess, the front runner to get him and stuff like that. So I don't know if Denver's going to get Al Horford, but yeah, they're not in a great situation. I am a little bit concerned for them. So thank you guys so much for watching this live stream.